Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on wherever you may be. Um, this is usually where we talk about military history, but many of you guys may or may not know what my actual background is. And many of you have specifically asked me to please comment on the Trump assassination attempt because of my background, which I will just briefly break down for you. It was not always military history or Hollywood. I spent many years in personal protection. I taught personal protection. I trained personal protection all over the world. I did details for lots of celebrities and people you have never ever heard of, which is many times the most dangerous ones. My specialty was advanced work. And one of the things that you're seeing at the Trump assassination attempt was how miserable the advanced work either failed by incompetence or deliberately designed to fail. I'm also going to share with you some information I know from people on the inside that I still have of colleagues that you have not seen, and I will break down rudimentally quickly what happened that we know of, and some of the gossip and some of the stories and some of the nonsense that you will also hear. I've done this for 20 plus years. I protected other people. I also taught in the military, and I always took it very serious to protect other people. It was it is somehow more than a job because of what it turned into. And when I saw, I really didn't want. I really wanted to comment on this the day I saw this happen, but I wanted more information, and now I'm seeing a flow of information and conspiracy stories that are coming out of everywhere. A lot of this is obfuscation. And then there's just the outright nonsense. And let's just start by dispelling the outright nonsense. There's a few things that the media, which let's call it the propaganda media, the wonderful propaganda media that we do have, and I will one day break down from a psychological point of view, that's my other studies, how propaganda actually works, because we're seeing it in thick effect right now. Let's just start with a few things. Trump was hit by a bullet. If you think he was hit by a piece of glass or other, you are wrong. He was hit by a bullet that was intended to kill him. And if you are amongst the people who think he staged this or set it up, you should probably examine if your IQ can be seen with the former Hubble telescope, because you are a moron. Okay? Let's just get that out of the straight. Why this 20-year-old kid crawls up there and tries to kill the president is what everybody's focusing on. And quite frankly, it is not important. And I'll break down a little bit later why that is. How this could be allowed to happen is far more interesting. Because depending, of course, on who in the Secret Service issues the guidelines for their operations, what their operating procedures are, and who and what kind of people they have in charge of a given assignment, that becomes sort of the focus here, because you can theoretically do a bad job ensuring that something can go wrong if someone is trying to. And we are looking at several credible threats against President Trump. And the most infuriating thing from my point of view is people insinuating that this was a self setup. Or I saw the first time I have ever commented on a political programming ever, because I stay away from politics, was when I saw the newscast debating if this was actually an assassination attempt. And I don't think people can be allowed, even on TV, even on CNN. I've been on CNN as a commenter. Sorry, you cannot be this stupid. You're not allowed to be. There should be rules for these things. There should be a hooking you, pulling you off stage at that point. There's been many credible threats against President Trump, and not just because of 8 years of rhetoric from his political opponents and the media, which are the same, about threat to democracy. He was the president for 4 years. Democracy seemed to have survived that, but everyone conveniently seemed to have forgotten that part. You don't like your political opponent, and many people who do not like President Trump is because the media and all the Muppets have been telling you for 8 years what a horrible person he is, highlighting the dumb things he sometimes say. Fine. But if you have now for 8 years told everybody he needs to be stopped, he needs to be killed, he needs to be this and he be that, there have been people in government, people in politics, people in high-ranking members of the Democrat Party have been calling for his assassination. Same thing in Hollywood. And we do live in a country where we have people that sometimes are not exactly that bright and highly susceptible to that kind of propaganda, and they will go out and do that. This is pretty much how the mob mentality works. So they have generated an excessive threat against this man. That's one thing. And then all of a sudden they floated the Iranian threat that there might be an Iranian hit in time to kill him. Of course, the timing of this assassination, of this particular event, was before Biden dropped out, before Trump had mentioned his VP pick. So if they got rid of him there, they could maybe start on a whole new slate with a Nikki Haley type person or something without the Trump Make America Great influence, which is now too late, because now that ball is most certainly rolling. There's also some external factors that makes this far more likely than this is just a 20-year-old who wants to make a name for himself. And my seeing a picture of him, and I had two thoughts when I saw this. And a lot of things about personal protection is instinct. When you are on the actual assignment with your client in the vicinity, or if it's a crowd or stage, you need to listen to your instinct very carefully, and you need to look at people very carefully around you. My first instinct when this happened was, this kid is not the main principal. And I just can't shake that feeling still today. Yeah, he's a patsy. Yeah, he was on the roof. Yeah, he had a rifle. Yeah, he fired the rifle at President Trump. Yeah, I have no problem with any of that. I just don't think he was the only one. And I've been searching for sound analysis of the event that seems to bear out the same thing. I'll share them with you in a minute. And then there's also how many shots were fired, how many weapons were fired, how was he killed. Now, we were told that he was shot by a suppressed 308 by one of the sniper teams. How many sniper teams were there? There's an amazing amount of questions we can't seem to get a straight answer to. And when the system start rolling out non-answers and obfuscation and hiding, then there's something wrong. Because if you want an open and honest investigation, then you'll get one. Just like Kennedy, right? Very open and honest. Which is another example that's very interesting that people that bring up as a parallel. And there are parallels. We'll get to that. I just want to do a quick word here, and if there's really interest in me breaking this down from a common sense former agent perspective, there's lots of talking heads out there that's talking about this. A lot of highly qualified agents and shooters out there talking about this. You don't really need me to add to that unless you really, really want to. But I wanted to start with breaking down the advanced work and how that completely failed. Advanced work, actually, let me just break down quickly. Personal protective detail is in anything, in civilian world. I worked a lot in the civilian world. Is no different really than from government work or Secret Service work. The only difference is the resources and the money you have available if you work for the government or the Secret Service. So denial of assets and resources on the very highest end pinnacle of the Secret Service seems to be something that really needs to be looked into. The advanced work is you show up before your principal, long before. As long before as you know you're going somewhere. I'll give an example. I was always the one to do advanced work. I very much enjoy doing advanced work because I like that kind of planning. And it is an enormous amount of planning and information and intelligence gathering that you need to get so you can disperse that to your team so you can set up and design your principal's visit in the safest way possible. And same thing if it's Secret Service or civilian or if it's a star or if it's a singer or it's a politician, doesn't matter. Or it's a family or a woman with a stalking problem that I work a lot with. It's all about you are going to a venue or a hotel. For instance, I had to take a principal to a hotel in Vegas, say, and I knew that, and it was a high risk client that had high risks. I knew there was a threat, so I would go, and this was a well funded operation, a big team, plenty of money, no problem. So I would go in advance I would go to the hotel where we were staying. I would meet with their security, head of security. I would completely go through the hotel and all their exits, find out where's the best room for my principal, how to get him out of there in any which way. If there's a fire, do we go this way? Do we go that way? Where the fire exits, are they highly lit? Are they safe? How deep are the steps in case he has a bad leg? He had a bad leg. What was the best way? Would this be toss him on my shoulder and carry him down, or for the team the team needs to know these things? So the venue where we're staying, we need to know everything. We need to have the breakdown, the layout, and we need to know, well, preferably if we have the option to switch rooms last minute, I would like to know who's staying in the rooms around me, up and down, below and above, and across in the hallway. Sometimes we would just book all the rooms surrounding the principal if we had that kind of money. An agent would live in a cluster around. Then we're also fairly safe because we're always clustering and be close to our principal. You never want to be in a hotel room in the opposite end of the hotel, obviously. So that's one thing. Now I need to know, where is my principal going? So what restaurants does he intend going to? Well, we're going to these restaurants. Then I would have to go to these restaurants, find out where the fire exits, where the parking, who's in charge of the parking, who's in charge of the security there, who's the chef. Now I would need to know the routes we would travel to and from. Is there any road construction? What are the alternative routes? What are the alternative hotels? What are the alternative restaurants we would go to? Who are we meeting? Do they have a detail? Who's their detail? May reach out and talk to their his head of security. Now, if, as it was, my client had a few health things. So now I need to know everything about my client's health, his health condition, the health condition of the people around him. Who in this town or going to is a specialist in these specific health problems my client had? And what's his number? What's his name? What hospital does he work for or at? So I could reach out in case we have an emergency. I could reach out immediately to the specialist, get him there, take care of my client. Is there a fast track through to the private airport? Who's flying the plane? Is the plane always fueled? Who's guarding the plane when we're not there? Etc., etc., etc. If I was with a star or public personality, I would go to the venue, if possible, in advance, and I would stand on the stage where my principal would stand, and I would look around, and I would notice, well, this was a celebrity, for instance, a celebrity star. What is the problem? What is it likely here? Well, obviously several stalkers. There's a female example I'm using. Stalkers. Okay, I need to secure the dressing rooms. I need to suite the dressing rooms for photos, for cameras, for listening devices, all these things. I do that for all my clients, of course, anyway. But especially paparazzi needs to be kept at bay. Enthusiastic fans trying to climb over the stage. They're enthusiastic, don't want to run them over or shoot them just because they want to come up and try to touch their knickers, but certainly don't want to get them that close. So where do I position myself so I can get to my star without being part of the stage design? That's another thing. I need to know, where am I? How do I grab my principal if something goes wrong or the crowd goes crazy? Where do I take her? Left, right? Where's the van? Where's the truck? Where's the cars? Where are the buses? Where do we go in case something goes wrong? If the truck breaks down, where's the other car going to start? Do we have to drive through the crowd to get there? Who's going to pave the way? Who's in charge of the security? Who do I need to call when I need 10 dudes to come over here and clear the crowd from outside the van or the bus, for instance. And certainly, if I was guarding something like the former president, I would stand where he's standing. Now, this is where you need to understand the Secret Service have complete and final say over all of this. So when you now hear they're trying to pawn this off on a small local police department for not securing the roof, small local police department whose chief, incidentally, has resigned, is run by a lieutenant. There's only 12 people there. They expected to do traffic. They're not set up for this. Okay, very important. Now, I do know from people inside the Secret Service that they did have one extra counter sniper team approved, and they were augmented by additional agents. I don't know if the little chubby puppy that was trying to man block Donald Trump half his height was one of those. I know there was agents there that were not Secret Service. They were augmented by other police forces, police snipers as well, which is fine, happens all the time. But the Secret Service has the final say. And whoever did the advance work here, what was his recommendation? Because if he stood there, did he place those two snipers? I'm sorry, it was actually a she who did that, by the way. And we'll get into the DEI and this as well. And full disclosure, I had a large security company with some 65 people working for me. I did a lot of personal protection back in the day before I came to LA and decided I actually wanted to do something else with my life, like movies, something fun, productive, creative. I had a woman that ran my security company, and she was exceptionally well qualified and exceptionally well disciplined and meticulous in her details. So this is not a hit against, you're a woman, you can't do this. No, I say if you're a 5-foot woman, you probably should not, or you definitely should not be the one to be on the close detail surrounding a man who's 6'6", because that's really not going to work. However, that being said, I'm not going to knock the agent. She was there. She did the best she could with what she had. It's not her fault. Maybe whoever put her there should have realized, well, this is not going to work. Put her somewhere else. So I'm not going to knock any of the people who were there doing their best. Just sometimes their best is not good enough for the job they're assigned to. And you need to look at who on earth assigned these people to this job. Who on earth did the advance work here? What was she thinking, placing the people she did? And also, I know from the inside that the Secret Service did not show up for the final briefing with local police department. Thus, no one had communication with each other. There's no overall comms. The bad guy was seen over an hour before with a rangefinder being suspicious. That's one thing. He was seen climbing the roof 20 minutes before. And only a couple of minutes before he actually started firing was somebody trying to call a local law enforcement and a Secret Service agent trying to get up on that roof to distracted him, which was, well, if we're going to go by the official narrative, that's what saved Donald Trump's life, because he was distracted. He had to rip off the shots real quick. Again, there's some problems with this. Anyway, from a lot of people who went to different rallies, they have stated this one seemed a lot less secure, a lot more lax in its security. There was no dogs. There was no perimeter security by point by point by point. There's dudes placed everywhere surrounding. Was there any drones in the air doing counter surveillance? $500 drone and a dude? Come on. This is a cheap asset. Did Trump have any of his own people work with the advance? Because my understanding from back in the day was Trump maintained some of his previous security detail, and he probably should hire some of these guys back, because it seems the Secret Service doesn't exactly have their balls in a row. And just because the lady resigned from her job as Secret Service director, well, they hired the next guy in line. The next guy in line for the past year been in charge of all details. He's just as incompetent, if this is what this is. They did not prepare this ground properly. They did not do a proper advance work. That is damn obvious to anybody who knows anything about this. It should in any which way be completely and utterly impossible for a kid with a gun to get on top of a roof within 130 yards of a president or former president speaking at this time where he has clear security threats. heightened security threats that people know of, which now makes it interesting. They ask, but why would the kid do it? And that gets us into, it has never been a problem for intelligence agencies to find a patsy and slightly nudge them in the wrong direction. There's always morons on left, on right, on everywhere that you can antagonize, motivate, pay to do horrible things. 2020 riots all over, bought and paid for. I was there, called up with the guard in uniform, saw how they were staging, putting out bricks in advance, had minivans driving them to and from, the specific antagonist directing the rioters in this direction with radio comms, everything. The riots bought and paid for. Nothing just happens. In the name of Roosevelt, actually, nothing just happens spontaneously. Everything is generated. This event, I have no problem with you finding some disgruntled kid who's unhappy with life. We're going to make you a star. Why did this kid have 12 channels encrypted comms? 20-year-old has no Facebooks, no social media. Okay, he was no unsocial, bit of an outcast, easy to manipulate, easy mark for intelligence agencies who want to have somebody pushed into doing things. And maybe he was told he was going to go be a star and do a thing. He did advanced work. He flew the drone over the venue days before. Where's the counter? That's another thing. You have the advanced team. You have a post-visit team as well. When you leave, somebody will police and scout the area to see if anybody's picking up your trash, to see what you're doing. You have a counter surveillance team. You have the escort team that's actually surrounding the principal, who should be in loop of everything that happens. 20 minutes before a dude climbs a roof, and no one is telling the close team. The CP team knew nothing about this. They should have been warned. Trump should never have been on stage. This was allowed to happen. Now, was this allowed to happen by incompetence, or was it allowed to happen deliberately? And I think that is what we really need to look at here. Because that's, well, why would they try to kill Trump? Why would the kid try to kill Trump? Well, the kid would try to kill Trump because he had some personal agenda of becoming famous or whatever. I don't care why the kid tried to kill the president. What I'm very curious about is, are all the other people who wanted to kill the president or tried or wanted to have somebody try. Now, if there wasn't a heightened threat, maybe it wasn't partially an instigated threat. Maybe there was an Iranian hit team. Maybe that's also just smoke and mirrors. You never know on this. But like I said, we're going to have an open and transparent investigation, just like with Kennedy. And let me remind you that the Warren Commission was full of people who wanted Kennedy out of the way. So, of course, that didn't exactly go all that well. The second congressional hearing, I think it was in 81, was the one you never really hear about, came out and said, yes, Kennedy was killed, probably a result of a conspiracy. Well, that also means that Lee Harvey Oswald wasn't the one who really pulled the trigger. Conspiracy denotes more people. And then you have, of course, the stop put option on the stocks the day before Trump's assassination, which is incidentally the same thing. There was a stop put and if you know anything about stocks, it's very complicated, and I don't know a damn thing about it, but I know that if you do this, just like they did before 9/11, incidentally on several airlines, expecting this stock to drop the next day, you sell short and you make tons of money. That was expected the day that was same thing was done by proxies for Soros and BlackRock. And BlackRock is interesting because those are the people who owns, there's three financial institutions that owns most of the people you do business with. They're banks that are the big companies. Those we got BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. And they are pushing the DEI agenda, the globalist agenda, beyond and above even companies making profit. They're destroying companies. Obviously, they're flying against the Trump agenda. They're also putting together a huge fund to rebuild Ukraine. Lots of Ukraine money is going to this fund. Again, if Trump becomes president, rather likely he might stop that money flow. It's possible. I don't believe he's just going to turn his back on Ukraine. That's just my thought. But things are going to change. So you have, and incidentally, the shooter was in a BlackRock commercial the year before. So he was in touch with someone within the media system for BlackRock. There's also been traces of cell phones that went to the shooter's house before and to FBI headquarters of Langley. That's very strange. Again, why does this man have 12-point encrypted comms? Who was he communicating with? He only bought the ammo the day you were going to go shoot. To me, he's a bit of a screw up that was influenced and given information to go do this thing. Because how else would he be able to get there? How did the gun get there? Through the web, presumably there was metal detectors. How did the gun get there? And how can nobody have called the CP team when that was identified minutes before? There's something really rotten about this. It stinks of something on the inside, and it wouldn't take a whole lot of people on the inside to facilitate this. Remember? And if you think the government is not willing or capable of doing something like this, you really need to start examining real events, because we are living in a parallel universe of this is real, but this is really real. And the media has been doing a wonderful job over the past many years of creating narratives that are not true at all. And many people only have time to watch the 10-second sound bites, and that's what they believe. The advance team, again, their job to determine the highest point, the sniper hotels, inside, outside the perimeter. It doesn't have anything to do with budget. What was the advance team's recommendation on that roof? Because they're going to try to pawn this off on local police, and that's just BS. It really, really is. And then, of course, the Trump campaign had asked repeatedly for more security. Some was denied. But apparently, from what I know from the inside, is that they did get one extra counter sniper team and a few more agents for this. Now, telling you the thing that I know from somebody inside, the shooter was hit in the head twice. One by a very large caliber that did some significant damage to the side of his head, and one in the center of his head. You haven't seen the photos. I know from somebody who has. They're circling internally. You're not going to find them online. But small caliber, fairly small round in the center of the forehead, and another one. And that is consistent with what we initially heard. 3 counter shots were fired. 1 missed. Fine. But when we get into the actual firing, and I don't want to be the one to just throw rumors, because there's a lot of rumors. It seemed to me instinctively that something was wrong. Now, the kid had an AR style rifle, apparently with a non-magnified EOTech red dot, 130 yards. My mom could make that shot. He went to a shooting club. He could make that shot. It's not the easiest shot in the world, but it's certainly not the hardest. You can do that with iron sights. You could probably come fairly in the ballpark with a handgun if you're good enough. So they shot him with a .308 suppressed rifle. And it was not the Secret Service agents that was mounted up on the roof with their rifle, with their Win Mag mounted. As far as I know, they did not fire at all. But he was hit a second time with apparently a .300 Win Mag. Eventually, you will get photos. The photos will leak out of the shooter's head. And then you, when you have seen those photos, and they will tell you that he'd been shot with either 308 or 300 Win Mag, then I suggest to you that you go online and you look at some of the shooting tests on ballistic dummies of either of those two projectile types impacting with a human head, and you will see the human head explode. And that is not what you're seeing if you get to see the photo of the shooter's head. That is something that I have questions and problems with, because if he was shot in the head with either of those two munitions, his head would have been deformed, and that's not what have been seen. We will see, but there are a lot of questions you really need to ask. You need to find out, what did the advance recommend, and was those recommendations overruled? Because either the advance can make or break it. If I do an advance, and not saying this is the case at all, if I'm incompetent in doing my advance at a time where I know there's a threat, it may be my fault that my principal will get killed because I'm not doing my job. Is this person who did the advance competent, did all the right recommendations, or the recommendations overruled? That's interesting. That's actually really, really important, because it only takes, that means the higher up, if she recommended the right things in the advance and was overruled, who overruled her and why? That's what needs to be clarified. What were the recommendations? Because that roof, of course, the roof needs to be sealed. Of course, the venue needs to be properly closed. Of course, you need proper dogs. You need and counter surveillance. Were there any counter surveillance? How many counter sniper teams were there? 2, 4. I heard 4. I keep hearing about 2. And yet the sound signature of what was fired by the people who are very qualified, who broke these things down, said there's 4 rifles that have been fired, that they hear 4 rifles in this. So there's some really specific questions. Something or someone allowed this to happen. And I don't know if it was incompetence or what it was, but this is just ridiculous. Also, the father said that the shooter went to the range that day. So did he bring the rifle with him that day? Did he place it there before? Did his dad see him leave with the rifle? Or was it always already in place? If he saw him leave with the rifle that day and the shooter left his home with that rifle, how on earth did he get it through any kind of security barrier through there? You would think is almost unthinkable unless somebody let him. He also did tell his coworkers that he will see him the next day. He took the Saturday off, said, we'll see you tomorrow on Sunday. Did he really expect to come back? Did he not know this was going to be a one-way ticket? I mean, he might not have been bright, but he can't have been that dumb. It seems very much Patsy-like. 10 days to advance it. That also means the Secret Service had 10 days to advance it and properly plan it. Plus, another thing about the advance, the Secret Service have the final say over where things go. You set up this, you set up that. Maybe we need ballistic glass here because we can't cover that angle. There's a bunch of tall buildings 1,000 yards out. We can't guard ballistic glass, so at least there's no threat from there. We don't like you putting the stage here. You need to rotate it over here because this is not safe, etc., etc. They placed a sniper team where they couldn't see the highest point opposing the venue for trees. Did anybody climb up to the sniper position and say, well, we can't actually see through those trees. We need to be somewhere else? Did the sniper team complain, we are in the wrong place, we can't see half of that section? Did I know from testimony, we now know that the sniper team did not take the shot of the shooter initially because they were trying to clarify if he was local law enforcement, because it had been stated to some that local law enforcement should be in place on that roof. It has been said that there were no local law enforcement on that stayed on that roof. It's been stated that that roof was unsafe by the idiot who used to be the director of the Secret Service. It was also stated that there was local law enforcement on that roof because it got too hot and it went down. And it was also that this building was not under the Secret Service interest. We get all these contradictory statements from government officials, which is just making all of this worse. But this is the government; they're experts in making things worse. It's not really a big deal. Again, you see Secret Service weld manhole covers shut. You see them take extraordinary steps to protect their principles, but not this one and not this time. There are people in the crowd that said they had heard shots fired. They felt they had heard shots fired from further away. And remember, a lot of Trump's fans are military, ex-military, or people who shoot, regular Americans. So did anybody check for those possible sniper hotels further away? Like a lot further away? The longest range sniper kill was what? 3,400 meters by the Canadian sniper. So how far? And again, counter drones. Did you at least put up a geofence around the venue? Because it's not like we're not seeing in Ukraine drones are being dropped on people constantly. Is there a drone umbrella, safety umbrella over these venues? There's a lot of questions here. And if there wasn't, why on earth not? You can buy a drone and a drone drop and build 3D print and explosives. The shooter, he had homemade explosives with remote detonators. He had one of the detonators on him. Where does a kid get, okay, you can probably figure out how to build a bomb anywhere online, but still, he built it with remote controls. They weren't apparently activated, which means they had a failsafe and a safety, and were not on. And was he in his car or on his bicycle? Did he walk there? So many questions. 2 weeks later, we still don't have clear answers to these things. So the question really is, again, are the Secret Service now the best people for this job? Are they hiring the best people for the job? And I'll show you a fun photo. And remember, I'm just saying this, remember that I had more in my business, but I was told this here yesterday. So this is something I want to show you that I thought was extremely interesting. And I was just told. You see, this is law enforcement class of dudes in the academy. You see something wrong with this? You don't have to know a whole lot about firearms, about tactical training before you can see there's something wrong with this. Well, this dude is pointing his gun at these people. This woman is pointing her gun seemingly at this lady. None of these people look particularly competent, but this lady here dropped out and she couldn't hack it. And today she's a Secret Service agent. I'm just saying, food for thought. And when it comes to the sound, this is what I was talking about. And there are people online, I'll put the links down, that broke this down. Really, really interesting. The sound signatures of the shots, being the first shot, is different than the second and the third. And the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth are completely different than the first three. And this, everybody agrees on, is the kill shot. Or at least one of them, because there might be two more shots that are hidden in there. But you see the sound signatures. Oh, they're all taken from the same microphone, from the side, by the way. They're not the same. This does not appear to be the same sound signature. Now, bullets obviously can sound different. I get it. But not that different. So there's a whole lot of questions going on there. And there's a whole lot of questions that needs to be asked. And that is my take on this, is there's more to this than just a crazy kid on the roof. And there's certainly something to be said for the complete and utter lack of the Secret Service advance work. And I would love to see the advance report. I would love to see what are the SOPs for these guys. What were the sniper told? Secret Service snipers don't have to operate in the same way as law enforcement snipers. Law enforcement snipers can't take a shot at somebody unless they're actually perpetrating a crime. Secret Service can do the preemptive thing and see somebody with a weapon not supposed to be there, and they can drop them because that's their job. They have to be preemptive. That is what a personal protective detail like that does. They are preemptive. Except here, they were not. They were reactionary. And if it wasn't for Trump picking this up himself and ducking himself, there was all the other shots that were raining down on him. My thought, instinctively, and I could absolutely be wrong on this is my guess, the kid was spotted. He was set up to loose off shots. The real shooter further back missed Trump. And now the kid starts firing, doing his job, and he gets dropped. Real shooter missed and walks away. That's my instinctive thought, that first shot just missed, because, and from further away from somewhere else. That's a little bit what the sound indicates as well. But, and it's interesting because I just saw this, I got the sound profiling yesterday, and that it was my thought from the very beginning, from the very first time I saw this, that is what I thought. But this is not acceptable. It is not acceptable to have our political leaders be assassinated. If you like them or not, doesn't matter. But it's also not acceptable to have a culture of DEI hires through our businesses, through our Secret Service, through our military. It cannot be about sexuality or skin color or gender. It has to be about who's best to do the job, who is the best person to do a job. And you see how it's destroying the military, it's destroying law enforcement, it's destroying businesses. And now, holy hell, Harley Davidson is on the DEI wagon as well. The most American brand of all is now being destroyed by these nuts. It is disgusting, and it will get people killed. And that, if that is what this is, if this is just simply and purely incompetence, that is staggering. From the premier security organization in the world, supposed to be top of the spear. If you have been eroded to the point where you can't do your job because it's more important to have 5'2" estrogen guarding 6'6" dudes, you're failing. And we have to start not failing our country. And we have to start dialing down the insane rhetoric, fueling people with hatred towards our political opponents, regardless what you believe. And if you are one of the people that was cheering on that people are shooting at Trump and, oh, he did, well, too bad they missed. I have had people say that to me. I don't care if somebody tried to shoot whatever, if it's somebody I don't like in politics, and Lord knows there's not a whole lot of people in politics I like, not here, not in Europe, but to start going off and assassinating them, it's not acceptable. And if your empathy has dropped to the point where you think it's okay, then you really need to examine your own priorities in life and your mental capacity as a human being. This is not okay. And we need to figure this out. We really, really do. Because from a personal protection agent's perspective, this cannot happen unless somebody let it happen. Remember Pearl Harbor? Whose fault was Pearl Harbor? They blamed Kimmel. The court-martialed Kimmel. He shot himself in disgrace. Was it Kimmel's fault? Where was the intelligence? Isn't it their job to tell you where the Navy, the Japanese Navy was? The British Navy, the British knew where the Japanese Navy was. They broke their Japanese codes years ago. Didn't share. It's Kimmel's fault. Sometimes things are not black and white. And I think the stock options noted that somebody knew that this was going to happen in the financial market. And now you look at the connections between financial markets, big financial markets, and intelligence services. And these entities have been intertwined ever since before the Second World War. Look at Allen Dulles, the Sullivan crowd. It's all tied together. And we really need to clean up this country because we are in a mess. And I worry for the soul of this country. And I love this country. I truly do. And most of the people in it. But we need to protect all of them. And we need to get to the bottom of this. And do not believe everything you see or hear in the media or on the news. Not anymore. you need to start asking a lot of questions, and you need to demand answers, even if you have to write your congressman or you have to write Harley Davidson and tell them to knock it off before they ruin that brand too. That's a personal thing. Never mind. You need to start demanding transparency, smaller government, and you need to try to figure out what in the hell are intelligence services and big media, big pharma, big food doing together. Why is our meat plants exploding all of a sudden? Historically, that's never happened, ever. There are things going on, and I think this is just another brick in that wall. Anyway, I will be happy to really gather information on this from everywhere and break it down and graphs and stuff. A lot of you have been asking me to comment on this as opposed to on military history, which I prefer to comment on. But I had to comment on this because I worked with personal protection for 20 years. And it's been irking me for the longest time that this is not right. And every day I see or hear more information, the more I know it's not right. And the more obfuscation I'm seeing and hearing, the more I know this is not right. So don't be fooled. Do not be fooled, and do not be led by anything other than your instincts and your brain. Okay, in a little hour or so, we're going to actually go back to talking about military history. So save your questions. I have not read anything in the chat here at all, because that's not, I wanted to say what I wanted to say, and we can talk about that later, or we can chat it off. We will go back to military history in about an hour or so, and I will see you there. And if you really want me to dig into this, I will put up a survey, and then we will see, and then I will dig into this some more. Don't want to. I want it to go away, and I want my normal country back. But that would mean I would have to go back in time some 20 years. See you in a little bit, guys.